Hey, everybody. This is the Pardon My Jerk podcast. I'm Kyle here. I'm joined with Dunk, my beautiful white wife, Brittany, and our new friend joining us as a special guest, Melissa Doss. Say hi, everybody.
Hello.
What's going on?
Hi.
So today we gathered such a big group together because we are providing our postpartum podcast. So my wife is fresh off the birth of our son, Kellen. Melissa, you've had one and you have another on the way, correct?
Got it. So I have a 15-month-old little girl. I can hear her talking in her crib, trying not to nap. And then I have one due this summer, another little girl.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The reason we got you guys here today is I remember when Britt got pregnant, she really struggled with just finding resources available to her on her training, what she could do, what she couldn't do when certain stuff had to go away. And it was very frustrating for her, sort of feeling alone out there with, she was the only person experiencing this. Do people that do CrossFit even have babies? What do I even do with this experience, right? So I was hoping you guys could come on and talk a little bit about what your experience was like being pregnant, and especially with you, Melissa, sort of having that baby and then ramping back up into being fit as well. I'd really appreciate your insights on that.
Sure. You want me to just start talking, or?
So let's just go ahead and get started with, let's just start with the training. So Britt or Melissa, why don't you guys just start with when you guys found out you were pregnant, what were you doing and what changes were started immediately, right?
Melissa, do you want to go first and I'll just chime in as you go?
Sure. So mine actually started before, the changes started for me before I got pregnant with Vale. So we had a really hard time the first time we tried to get pregnant. It took us like a year and 4 months to get pregnant with Vale. And at the time I was still competing. So I just made it to regionals. I don't even know what year it was. 2017, I think. 2017, but it goes into like the 2018 year. And so for me, I had to like completely stop competing on any level, just because I think my body was so tired. I think I was having a little bit of adrenal fatigue, and I had periods, but I wasn't like regularly ovulating. And sorry if that, I don't know what you're hearing. Okay.
They can skip ahead if they got a problem with any of this.
But yeah, so I was like using these ovulation strips just to kind of see what my body was doing. And I wasn't regularly ovulating when I was competing. So I had to completely stop competing, which for me, I was ready at the time, and they had like changed the CrossFit rules anyway. So there wasn't even any more regional. So I was ready to do it, but I had to completely stop competing. And then I had to like take down the intensity of class workouts. And for someone who has a competitive spirit, that's really hard. And I don't know if Brittany, you're the same way, but it's really hard to just like not have a reason to scale. Like when you're pregnant, you have a reason, but in the beginning of pregnancy, people don't know you're pregnant, right? So you just look like you're lazy. And
yeah, I had the exact same like feeling, especially when I found out I was pregnant, because you don't know what you can do, but you feel like you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing for you and your baby. But you're at the same token, you're like, man, I can do this workout RX. I should be doing it RX. And or people come to the gym and they're like looking at you like, why are you doing such lightweight? But they don't even realize you're pregnant. So yeah, I did have a struggle with that at the beginning as well.
And I did, once we did find out we were pregnant, like I didn't tell our coaches we were pregnant immediately, just because you're scared that you're going to have a miscarriage in the beginning. So I just basically went to the gym for a period of time. And I mainly like walked and did yoga. And I think I did that just because I was so scared, because it was my first. No doctor ever told me that I had to stop working out. Once I went to the doctor, I think I was 7 or 8 weeks with my daughter, Vale. I remember my doctor telling me that I can do, and luckily the doctor I had at the time, he CrossFitted, which was wonderful because he was able to know exactly what I was. Yeah, he was awesome. And so he would always tell me that you can do, so for me, it was 50% of what I did before, like weight wise, because I love lifting heavy. And if you tell me like, just kind of do what feels good, I'll do things way heavier than I probably should. So he was like, take the max that you've ever done and don't do above 50%. And so I kind of kept that in mind, but honestly, like when I went back to the gym, I kind of eased in, and I really just went like based on feel. I'm sure you did the same thing. So if something feels weird, and we can talk about specific movements later on, but if something felt really weird, I just stopped doing it. At a certain point, like you stop running because it feels weird.
Yep.
Yeah, like you have to stop rowing because the rower hits your belly.
That's fun. Like running, I had to stop sooner too because I had such bad sciatic pain, and like that was like the one thing that just lit it up every time. And that was like early on in my pregnancy, and it wasn't like a fatigue or a tired thing or I couldn't do it. It's just I was in so much agonizing pain, and I think it's just like the position of the baby at the time, and just the changes happening to my body. But yeah, so that I'm with you on that. I think I'm a little different in the sense, and you were probably a little more hesitant too because you guys were trying for so long to get pregnant. Ours was not even trying. I was on the pill, and here we are, we're having a baby. So I think too, I went into it a little more open-minded and not so scared at the beginning. And also, it depended on the doctor we talked to. One of my favorite doctors I had, she was like, I've heard so many pregnant women doing CrossFit, and they've been okay. And all I can really tell you is I'd rather have a fit mom than a not fit mom. So do what and she said the same thing probably every doctor said to you, like just do what feels right.
Right.
The problem with that, like, and that's awesome that they were like, you guys had doctors that were supportive, but that was kind of one of the things I really want to talk about, because like there was instances in our process where it was like, oh yeah, just do what feels right. And it's like, well, that's not insanely helpful, because you don't know when it does or does not necessarily feel right. Like, what does not right feel like?
When, like, Melissa, have you been working out with your second pregnancy?
Yeah. So for this one, we weren't trying, which fine. My husband just came in and told me I was being too loud, so I might go get my headphones in.
Okay.
And anyway, so for this one, we weren't trying, and so I didn't really like change anything when I found out I was pregnant with Vale. But I will say, because I got pregnant exactly a year after Vale was born, so she was 12 months. So I wasn't back to my full capacity anyway. I was still scaling movements and scaling things, like especially muscle ups and certain weight I couldn't do as heavy as I once did. So I didn't really have to scale much more than I already was. I will say that I've probably lessened intensity a little bit, but it's not really because I'm trying to. It's just because I can't really like breathe, as I'm sure you can relate to this, but I can't like breathe as much when I'm working out. And I also have this like stupid pregnancy symptom where my nose is like stuffy. And did you have that at all?
Yeah, I sneeze constantly.
It's horrible. It feels like literally like a cold every day of your life. And I've had it for a month. And so that, plus not being able to, breathe as it is doing burpees when you're pregnant, I've just naturally kind of slowed down.
Yeah.
But I definitely haven't been as worried this time, because like you said, I wasn't really trying to get pregnant. And
one, two, I was just curious if, like, because you've already like kind of gone through it, like knowing like your comfort level with doing things, like if you kind of changed going into the second pregnancy, like, oh, I know in this first one I was able to do this and everything was fine. And yeah, so that's because I'm curious when we try again if like my mindset will change a little bit more just based on what I did this pregnancy. So
it totally will change. I started working out again, doing CrossFit with Vale when I was maybe 13 weeks, like right after the first trimester. And I even like did the open, and I remember doing like rope climbs and stuff until I was like 16 weeks. So I wasn't as much of a freak about it as time went on. And this time, like, I'll probably do the open again. And yeah, your mindset definitely changes, because I had a really, really easy labor with Vale, and I had a really healthy pregnancy. Like, knock on wood, I didn't have any complications or anything like that. So I'll probably do the exact same thing that I did with her. And I was active pretty much. Actually worked out the day before I gave labor. I started having contractions at the gym that morning.
Yeah, I same thing. I worked out pretty much till the day.
You worked out Tuesday, and we went to the hospital Thursday.
Wednesday was when I started feeling
The
light contractions that I had no idea what it was. I'm like, I came home and I'm like, I don't think I should work out tonight. Like, something's just not right.
Mm-hmm.
And then it progressed into Thursday, and then I'm like, okay, it's coming.
So you guys,
something's happening, and I don't know what this is.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt too. I was like, something's happening, because this is nothing. I was the same way. Whole pregnancy, no complications. We were very fortunate with how healthy of a pregnancy I had too.
You guys just reminded me, this conversation just took me in a direction of something I think that you were really appreciated while you were pregnant. So let's get into like nuts and bolts specifics of when you see a workout, and let's say the workout is 4 rounds for time of 30 toes to bar and a 400-meter run. Like, what were some of what exercises for you guys had to go early? Which ones had to go late? And why don't we talk a little bit about what you guys did to scale and adjust and modify movements to accommodate your needs at the time?
Okay. Well, if we're talking about that kind of workout, I think the first thing that I really let go was any like sit up core kind of work. That was the first thing that like GHG sit-ups, ab mat sit-ups, that kind of, well, pretty much those two things are the first thing I just kind of stopped doing once I found out I was pregnant, just because yeah, like I still did core work. Like I did a lot of like asymmetric core work, isometric, sorry. Like a lot of hollow holds and hollow rocks and Russian twists and stuff like that to kind of keep my core intact. But yeah, ab mat sit-ups, GHG sit-ups, I kind of took away once I found out I was pregnant. And then, like I said, running went a lot earlier for me than I anticipated, just because of having such bad sciatic pain, and it just shot down my leg anytime I ran. So
That's awesome.
yeah, and then so to replace the running, I did a lot of assault bike work, which my favorite thing in the world. So I was not too happy about that. But and then toes to bar, I probably did at the early stages, but once I started showing a little bit more, I think I did. I actually, Bethany Shadburn posted like weighted hanging knee raises that I started doing. So I put a dumbbell between my feet, and that definitely was like just as intense as I would say, but it definitely helped. So that was probably my two scaling options at the early stages of my pregnancy when I couldn't do those two things. What about you, Melissa?
Did side twists like feel really weird?
Not really. Like I do it with a kettlebell and I felt okay with it. And I did that pretty late on too, probably up to like almost 20 weeks, and I was okay.
Really?
Sweet bicep pump.
Yeah. I don't know who told me this, but someone told me, I think I was in a yoga class when I should do more yoga, but again, something you should do and don't do. But
yeah,
I was pregnant with Vale and I was told not to do any twists in a yoga class, and I have no idea like why or anything. So I like completely stopped doing any twist.
This sounds like a great time for us to make it very clear. None of us are medical professionals. Cover our asses here.
The fact that you brought that up is like, that's like with anything you look up, like anytime I was doing an exercise and later I got into my pregnancy, I would look up online, like, can you do this while pregnant? And it was always like, well, some people say you can, some people say you can't. So yeah, I think it was one of those things like, once again, I did it, and if it hurt, I would have stopped, but I didn't feel any discomfort or anything ever doing it. So, and like I said, I pretty much probably did that up to, I stopped doing a lot of ab work once I hit like that 22-24 week period where they're like, you can't really lay on your back anymore. So like I didn't do hollow holds and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but yeah, no pain there. So that's interesting that they brought that up. Like, once again, I think it just goes back to what sources you're getting your information from too, you know?
Right. I have no idea. I feel like with Vale, I gave up like pretty much all core stuff in the beginning, except for planks. And I think it's just because, I don't know, like I never had anyone to tell me what I could and couldn't do when it came to core work. And I know sit-ups are like a no when you are pregnant. I mean, although when you're first pregnant, your baby's so little, I can't imagine that like really does anything, but I just chose not to do them. With this pregnancy though, I've been doing definitely planks, and I think planks are cool until you start coning. So coning is like when, you have like a random weird cone on your stomach. So when I started coning, like as my baby got bigger, I stopped doing those. And same for like toes to bar. I never really did toes to bar with Vale. And this time, I just don't know if my core is like strong enough to do toes to bar. So I haven't really been doing that. I've been doing a lot of like side bends, like with weights. I did them yesterday in like my oobly or whatever you call them, my love handles for lack of a better term.
Oh, your quadratus lumborum probably lit up.
Those are really sore, but I honestly focus more on just like overall core. So like overhead carries. I do a lot of those overhead lunges. I do a lot more like stability core work than I do actual like ab work.
You did a lot of carries.
Yeah, it carries a lot of front rack holds and
yes.
I miss doing bear hug holds. I got too nervous like holding something on my stomach after a while too. So it was like,
what about like some of the less obvious stuff, right? So like the first thing your doctor tells you is like stay away from ab stuff, but like Britt, I know you had like a lot of adjustment with like squatting and like a lot of overhead stuff too. And like handstand work, that was like a big adjustment.
Well, I'm like handstand push-ups are like my favorite movement in CrossFit. So when I had to let those go, I was kind of upset. But I was actually just telling Kyle in the car, I handstand walked and did handstand push-ups up till about 24, 25 weeks. And I remember doing a workout. Huh? What'd you say?
Like till you get too heavy.
Yeah, it was more so like the head rush was just becoming too much. And like, and like you said, you have a harder time breathing once you get farther along in your pregnancy too. And I think in my mind too, I was like, I should probably start cutting these out soon. But like, then you see people like Cara Saunders, who's handstand walking at 33 weeks and stuff. So it's like, once again, I think you got to go off of what you're comfortable with. And maybe next pregnancy, I'll be like, maybe I can go a little farther with it. But yeah, that one I stayed with pretty long. Rope climbs I cut out a little early just because I got fearful of falling off the rope. And once again, you get heavier trying to pull yourself up.
I probably wouldn't recommend rope climbs when you find out you're pregnant at all. You're not really supposed to do anything that has a chance of falling.
Yep.
Take that for what it's worth. But I did them because I didn't know any different. I did them probably till 16 or 17 weeks, but I don't do them this time because I don't want to fall. That would be really bad on any level.
Yeah, and I hear
yeah.
I'm trying to think. And squat wise, I mean, I definitely squatted farther into my pregnancy than I thought, but I did back off on the weight dramatically just because it's so intense on your core and your pelvic floor and like everything. I just feel like the farther along I got, the more scared I got. And I could tell a difference, like if I overdid it, especially with like overhead squatting or back squatting, like I could feel a difference in like my core area, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I started backing off more and more with that.
Then you would like sub in like
Sorry if you guys can hear my daughter.
Landmine. I did a lot of landmine squats too.
I don't even know what that is.
It's where you have like a barbell and it has a like a hinge connection to it, and you kind of stick it in a plate and you can like put it over your shoulder and squat. So it took a lot of like pressure off of my core more so. So that was nice. So yeah, I did that and a lot of goblet squats after a while just to keep up with the squatting mechanism, but take away from so much abdominal work with it. Because I was saying to Kyle too, I'm like, man, you forget like once you get so far into your pregnancy and your core is pretty much gone, how much of these exercises use your core muscles. It's almost everything you do.
Oh yeah, most of them do.
Yeah.
And like postpartum, I know we'll talk about that later, but you realize how weak your core is postpartum because literally like an air squat is ugly after you have a baby.
Yeah, talk about it, Melissa. So what was your recovery and sort of ramp up process post baby like? So how long? So this is great stuff. So when did you start? Where did you start? And like how did that progression move along for you?
Okay. Can you guys hear my daughter, by the way?
A little bit.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. It's okay.
Okay. Tell me if she gets loud. I'll go in there. But anyway, so postpartum, so I actually switched. I was 35 weeks and I switched from a doctor to a midwife's group because I wanted to have a natural birth. And the doctor that I had at the time, I mean, was wonderful, but the group as a whole didn't really support natural births. They actually mentioned that they wanted to induce me at 39 weeks. It was just like a standard procedure that they like to do. I think it was more for like scheduling concerns for them than for me because my baby was measuring like really small. I hadn't gained maybe like 26 pounds to 27 pounds total. And so it really bothered me. So I switched to a midwife's group. I was 35 weeks pregnant and they accepted me, thankfully. So anyway, so they told me when I was in the hospital, like, don't do anything for like 5 or so weeks, or maybe 5 or 6 weeks until you come back in for your postpartum appointment, which Brittany, you probably haven't had yet.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So you go in and they feel around and they just make sure everything is okay. And I think they make sure that everything's out of your belly, like everything that's supposed to come out.
Yeah.
And then you can start doing stuff. But that doesn't mean so I started going on walks probably the day after I had Vail, just because getting out in the fresh air like really helped. So I did listen. I just went on walks and like tried to stretch and stuff. And you're so tired when you have a baby. You don't really think about going to lift weights when you're, a weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like survival mode at that point.
Seriously, I'm so tired. So I didn't probably do anything for 5 or so weeks. And then I did come back to CrossFit and I just like scaled everything. My coaches were really great about like not pushing me too much. And they would always ask like, hey, there's box jumps today or something like that. Like, do you want to do these? What else? Like, what do you want to do? They would leave it up to me a lot if I wanted to substitute something. Core work, I didn't do really much core work in the beginning because your muscles are so weak and you're still a little sore. Your stomach's still a little bit sore. So I tried to go slow. And then I was always so scared of squatting, like heavy squatting when you come back. I ripped a little bit with veil, so I had to have stitches. I don't know if you had to have stitches too,
I
Brittany.
did. I had a pretty bad one too.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm all healed up, so it's good.
Yeah, that was like one of my biggest fears with having a baby is ripping.
Yep, I was the same way, and I'm like, of course it happened. We only had a 6-pound baby, so I'm like,
me too.
Yeah,
me too. And it wasn't a horrible rip, but it,
it was enough.
It was enough. Right. But with back squatting, I was like terrified of ripping open my stitches because I had a girlfriend that went back to squatting heavy too soon and she ripped them all open and had to go back and get them again. Horrible.
Yeah. We'll edit that out in post.
That is, oh gosh, that is scary.
Right. I took it really, really slow in terms of like coming back. And then also like, sorry if this is TMI, but I really kind of determined like if I was still bleeding, then it was probably too soon to do any sort of like heavy-ish squats or anything like that. So I think part of that is seeing how your body feels, but I would definitely recommend waiting until your doctor kind of gives you the all clear, because I see so many women on Instagram and Facebook, and they literally come back to the gym like 2 or 3 weeks after they give birth and they start doing crazy stuff. And I just kind of wonder, are you doing this because you truly want to? Are you doing this because you hope to get attention and because maybe people think it's great that you came back so soon? I have no idea. Maybe they just felt amazing and they chose to do that and their doctor said it was great. I mean, I have no idea, but for me,
one of the key takeaways I learned through this whole process, and I think it's really good for a lot of women to keep in mind, is like, you cannot compare your behind the scenes to other people's highlight tapes, right? Like truly everybody has a completely different experience. And that's what I really wanted you guys, that's why I really wanted to do this. So people can look at 2 people like you, very, very healthy, but you also had tons of struggles too that you had to overcome. And that ramp up and ramp down process is going to be so different for everybody, regardless of how healthy or maybe unhealthy or whatever it may be, but I can understand there would be like a lot of insecurity there when you feel a certain way and you're looking in the mirror every day, but then you open up Instagram and you're like, oh, well, she's still doing this. Why am I not doing it? Or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm going into my 3rd week of postpartum here, and I just went for my first walk last week just so once again get out of the house, because I was like stuck in here because like I said, I was trying to breastfeed, and that is physically exhausting, especially if it's just not working and it's up all night, and it's on you more so than anyone. Like your husband can't really do it, or your significant other really can't do anything for you. So that was just taking a toll on me. I think the biggest thing like with postpartum and wanting to come back working out sooner is just like kind of like to give myself like that mental break from like, because I love being a mom and I love my kid, but I do miss like that me time of me like going to the gym and just like kind of sweating it out and feeling good and and looking like, and luckily like I've lost a lot more of my weight quicker than I thought I would, but I still look at myself and I'm like, man, like I can't wait to like get back to like looking at semi-normal to what I was pre-pregnancy. But I think that's where I'm having a hard time with, but I'm kind of with you in the sense that I don't want to come back balls to the wall and then like and then I have to start over again because I didn't wait long enough to come back. Right. So I'm going to kind of progress back into it slowly too. I think like this week I'm really going to focus on just going for long walks every week and maybe start like doing some stretching and mobility.
Getting enough food.
Yeah.
I think so. You like touched on postpartum bodies, man. When you're pregnant, like your belly is so cute at a certain point in your pregnancy. And then when you have a baby, like I still look pregnant for probably 4 months after, to where people would come up and be like, oh, your belly's so cute. And I'm like, I had my freaking baby.
Yes.
And so I think it's just different for everybody. I mean, it didn't offend me. It was just like a little bump, but I think it's just like, I know some people and they would walk out of the hospital like with jeans on, which I'm like, why would you wear jeans to the hospital?
Yeah.
But whatever.
I'm like, I just want to be comfy and get home and like sit on the couch.
Yeah. Like anything that buttons is horrible. But I think too, like postpartum, and I don't know if we'll talk on that, but I think a lot of women struggle with like postpartum body image, and it is really hard. I promise your body will come back, and maybe it won't be like exactly the same, but it will be strong and healthy again, and you'll fit in your pants. And I don't think my body looked that much different postpartum than pre-baby, maybe like a tiny bit extra skin on my belly, but not really.
Yeah. And I've definitely came to terms with the fact that like I've had a baby, my body's never going to be the same, which I'm fine with. I just think like, you know, like when you work so hard to like be in the best shape of your life, you know, and especially like I'm 30 now, I don't know how old you are. And I'm just like, I want to stay on that track with myself. And right now it's like, the only thing I can do is try to eat healthy and like do the little things I can to give myself exercise. And so I think that's like the hardest thing with me with postpartum is just like wanting to get back into that. And like you said at the beginning, I'm very competitive too. And I think like I miss kind of that like part of my life too. But and just getting that mental break from being a mom, because it's like right now 24 hours of my day is devoted to that. So but that's I think what I'm most excited about. But at the same time, I want to be safe about it too and come back at the right time and not rush it.
Yeah,
Well,
you will.
You
and there's like
games, right? You were games athlete?
Yeah, so I went to the games in 2014, and then 2017 my team made it to the games, and I had a compound fracture on my ankle like 2 months before the games, so I had to sit on the sidelines. That sucked. And then I did regionals in 2018. I have my years all mixed up, so I did come back, but definitely not as strong as I once was with my ankle. But yeah, it was a fun run. It was 7 years of competing, and you know, it was awesome.
Was that as an individual or a team every time?
I did both. So I did. Really? I did 3 years of team and 4 years of individual.
Okay, wow,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't miss. It sounds really bad to say, but I love like local competitions, but I don't miss the training that takes and the sacrifices that takes. I'm really happy at this point in my life that I don't do that anymore. But it was like a wonderful time in my life, and you get to meet so many people and you get to travel, and that was like before COVID and before, you know, all the restrictions. It was just really fun. But you know, like anything in life, like now I love being a mom, and life is really different. I don't have time to do all that stuff. And Brittany, I'm sure you'll understand, and you do understand now. Yeah. If you get 45 minutes to yourself to work out, it's like a really good day.
I'm at the point where if I get 45 minutes to just like lay down, it's seriously a good day. Yeah. So I completely get that.
What was that? What did you say?
Nothing.
So how was that journey specifically for you, like as an athlete then? How did you feel? Like sort of like how did your mentality sort of have to change from shifting gears from an athlete to a mom? Was that smooth for you? Did you enjoy it? Was it hard? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I've been married. How long have I been married? 11 years. So my husband literally wanted to have a baby probably 8 years ago. And normally I feel like it's the woman that wants to have a baby more, but I loved like competing, and I loved the point in my life that I was at that I just wasn't ready. And so for me, I wanted to like kind of do all that first. And so when I was ready to have a baby, I think the switch was a lot easier because I kind of chose it on my time, somewhat my time. So it was a little bit easier, but even then going from like being super competitive to just being able to like air squat and do like really light things, that's really hard mentally, even if you're ready for it and you want to be it, the mom, you know. I'm sure you feel the same way, Brittany, but it's really hard to just like flip a switch and be like, I can't, and not even competitive, but like, I can't do whatever I want anymore. Like I can't just leave on a Sunday and go to Target and go run errands. Like you have another human to care for. Yeah. So like life has totally changed. And in the beginning, I had a pretty hard time with realizing that I no longer had the freedom that I had before, because I'm 34. We waited till I had Vale at 33. So we waited a while to have her. And in that you get set in your ways, you know? So I used to coach in the mornings. I used to coach the 5:30 and 6:30, and then I would work out and go to work. And, you know, you like have the set schedule, and when you have a baby, like your life, it's awesome, but it like totally gets flipped upside down, and you'll pack gym clothes on Monday, and Monday's a bad day. So you can't go to daycare because you need to go home with your kid, or, you know, like Tuesday, your baby's sick, so you don't go to the gym then. And so for me, I know this wasn't really your question, but like adding in stuff in my basement has been really important to staying on track postpartum, because life does get in the way. So if I can't make it to the gym, it's really nice to just have something downstairs, because if I don't move like most days of the week, I'm like super grumpy.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a great segue into probably the most important question I do want to make sure I ask you today, definitely before we get out of here, is, and I'll ask you first, Britt, when you were pregnant, what is it that you wish somebody would have told you? What is the resource that you wish you had? What information you wish was out there? If you could have spoken to someone who was a competitive CrossFitter that had been through this, what do you wish they would have told you?
It's something I wish I would have actually done myself. I said I wish that someone would have just documented their pregnancy along the way of like, you know, this week I stopped doing this and this is why, like, just kind of like giving like almost like a guideline of like, you don't have to follow this, because like we've said this whole podcast, every pregnancy, every woman is completely different in their journey. But just kind of like background, because even like with jump roping, I looked up like, when do you have to stop jump roping? And some sources were like, you shouldn't do it at all during pregnancy. And some sources are like, I did it up till my baby was due. And I did single unders literally probably like the week before I ended up having Kellen, like, and it didn't bother me. Like, I thought the jolting up and down would, and it didn't. So I think I wish that, because trust me, there are a lot of professional CrossFitters and athletes who post a lot of material out there. But unless you go to their Instagram and like scroll through and like look at the dates and try to figure out how far along they were, like, they give you a lot of good insight, but I almost wish like someone, and I wish I would have done it and just put it out there for anyone who wanted to read it, like kind of like my journey of what I did and when I stopped doing things and how things felt, you know, just as a guideline to kind of help me through that, because I had a hard time like doing stuff at times, because I'm like, I would feel awful if something happened to my baby because I decided to do something at the gym, you know, but at the same time too, I'm like, I don't want to not do something when I'm completely able to do it too, and I'll be fine. Like, so it's just kind of finding that balance. And I had a hard time with that. And then I had a hard time too with like feeling good about letting things go or having to scale things back, because I am such a competitive person. I remember there were a couple of times we came back up from the gym and I just started crying to Kyle, because I'm like, and he's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I just can't do what I used to do. And that's hard for me. I mean, I've been an athlete my entire life. And now I'm being like, not forced, because I'm making a choice and, you know, it's for my baby, but it's still hard to just give up on things, especially like, I mean, you've been doing CrossFit way longer than I have. I've been 3.5 years, but I'm like, I just put a lot of time, effort, and like, you know, into making myself into this person. And now I'm like having to almost take huge strides in the other direction. So, I mean, it's a mental thing too. And I think like, I wish there was like, it's nice that they have the Facebook groups for women, but not every woman on there is like as active in working out through their process. Like, I remember when they first told us at the beginning of our pregnancy, like, make sure you go for a walk every day as your exercise. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be doing a lot more than just walking. So I think just having that information out there would have been really helpful. And I have told a lot of the other major CrossFitters, like I'll send them like a DM on Instagram, like, thank you for posting your stuff. Like Kathleen Lance McWhorter, she posted a lot of her postpartum workouts and stuff, and kind of where she was like each week after having her baby. And I like reached out to her and I was like, just thank you for like putting this up there, because it's just nice to see like what people are doing along their way, and just like also what they're feeling. Annie Thorsdottir was another one. She's very open about how her journey's been through this, her having a baby too. And I think that like has helped me kind of like figure out where I want to be in this postpartum journey, but I didn't feel like I had those resources as much while I was pregnant. And I wish there was something out there that just says like, you got to listen to yourself, but this is what I was doing at this point. It was okay.
That's why I want you to get like specific with stuff, because I know, because like I said, like there's a lot of stuff that's provides with vagaries on how to do it, but it's like, no, when did you stop getting inverted? Like, at what point could you handle running, and what point couldn't you handle running anymore? Like that kind of stuff, because I know that would have been such a helpful resource for you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, because like, and like Kyle thought for sure he pretty much thought I'd be done doing any type of Metcon, like once I hit like, what'd you say?
I would have thought by your third trimester would have been just basically like bodybuilding stuff.
And I pretty much did all the Metcons that they did. I just scaled back the weight drastically and like lowered my intensity, and obviously scale any exercises I couldn't do. Like I did these really ridiculous box burpee things, but they worked for me. And I was like, they look Yeah, they look stupid and they look like I'm not doing anything, but being 8 months pregnant, they're exhausting. So
Are you
yeah.
kidding? So heavy. I'm like, oh my gosh, just even a half burpee, I'm exhausted.
Yeah,
It's heavy.
exactly. So I'm like,
Yeah.
and I kept saying to myself too, I think this is another big point, like when you're trying, like if you're trying to figure out if you're doing enough exercise, like I kept telling myself, like I'm in the gym and I'm moving for a good hour to hour and 15 minutes every day, you know, which is a lot more than some women who are pregnant can say. And I'm like, so I'm doing something, whether it is the bare minimum to make myself feel better and, you know, have this healthy pregnancy for myself and also my baby. So that was another big mindset I kept telling myself every time I was in the gym and working out.
So Melissa, same thing. Like if you could go back and like, what's one thing you wish somebody would have told you, or some kind of resource that you wish you would have had going into this? Like, how can you help other potential moms in your same position right now?
Brittany had a really good answer. I feel like now I could totally, I don't, because it takes so much energy, but maybe I will after today. Just like kind of, you know, being more open about my pregnancy journey. I have ideas, and then like at the end of the day, I'm so tired. I'm like, nah, I'll post about it later. And then I never post about it. But just, you know, just like, hey, this week, you know, this felt really weird, so I subbed out this. I used to do that some with Vale, and I had people all the time like messaging me, like saying how helpful it was. And it's really great to do that. It just takes energy. And I think that's something that's wonderful, because you're right. Like there's literally no resources out there that tell you not only like what's safe or not, but like, hey, this felt really weird for me, just so you feel less weird about it. Like pull-ups felt really weird for me early on with Vale, and every other pregnant person I knew could do pull-ups. Some were still doing muscle-ups, and I'm like, why can't I do these? But every time I did that like motion, I felt like something was pulling my stomach. And so for me, that was a sign like to stop doing it. And maybe just being more open about that would be awesome. And you kind of touched on not being able to do the things you used to do. So I was like 11, I think maybe 11 months postpartum, and I tried to do a bar muscle up, and they used to be like my favorite workout movement ever. And I couldn't do it. And I remember like almost wanting to cry at the gym because I couldn't do a bar muscle up. And then like when I got in my car to go home that night, I thought like, what a ridiculous attitude I had that day, because I hadn't been practicing. Like, can you imagine not doing something, not just for 11 months postpartum, but also I didn't do them when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
So I did a muscle up in almost like 2 years. And then I get mad at myself because like one day I try it and I just can't do it. But you have that attitude, I think, a little bit when you're postpartum, because like you used to be able to do all these things. And then when you try to do them and you can't, you kind of feel like you've gotten so far behind and you're never going to catch up. And maybe, you know, maybe there's a tiny bit of truth to that if you're not willing to put the work in. But, you know, like if you want to get your pull up back and you go in there when it's safe and you do a little bit of pull up work, like every single day, I mean, you're totally going to get back. And I just have to like, remember that, like keep my mindset, especially with the competitive spirit that, you know, I'm the one who chose not to practice this. So I can't blame anyone but myself when I can't do it. And it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of life, you know, but you can get it back. But anyway, kind of what Brittany was saying, just like having more resources when you're pregnant, just knowing what is definitely unsafe, like a falling risk, and then what just society think is unsafe. I mean, I have people like at work, I'll carry in bags and people stop me and they're like, oh my God, you shouldn't be carrying that. I'm like, I'm not disabled, right? I'm like super healthy and I can carry a lot of things, you know? And so it almost like bothers me. It sounds so bad because I know people are just trying to be nice, but just like kind of bothers me when people look at you when you're pregnant, kind of like you have a handicap or, you know, like you can't do it. And I love my mom so much. I hope she doesn't listen to this, but my mom is like one of the worst. And she's always been like super nervous every time ever since I started doing CrossFit, like, well, when are you going to stop doing that? Like, you should just like power walk. Cause that's what she does. And it's just like unknown for her. Like she's never lifted weights. She's never done gymnastics movements. And it's just like the unknown is scary for her. So even now, like the other day I went to the gym because I was in a really bad mood and I needed a mental break. And I called her and she was like, well, number one, COVID, and she's terrified. Right. But number two, she's like, should you be doing those movements with your, you know, now that you're pregnant? And I kind of hate that mindset. I wish people would, you know, if you've never worked out before, no, you shouldn't be going in there trying to like clean and jerk, you know, PR your weight. But if you're like if your body's used to it, you've been doing it for years, I say like by all means go and do whatever you want within reason, and just try to listen to your body. If you can't say your ABCs, that really helped me. If you can't say your ABCs, you probably need to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're like overly straining, you probably should take some weight off. But
Yep.
like allowing women to do what they want to do within reason, and not treating them like they have some sort of, you know, disability because they're pregnant.
Yeah, I think that bears repeating is, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because Britt got a lot of that stuff too, of people making comments to her about, oh, you're doing too much, or are you trying to go into labor early, and that, like, that's a type of thing. And it's like, first and foremost, my wife's a badass and she deserves your respect, you know what I mean? And she deserves the respect for how hard she worked at being a mom, trying to stay healthy through her pregnancy. And I think it's very important that we say that we had an exceptionally healthy young boy when he was born too. Britt was largely asymptomatic throughout her entire pregnancy. Like, we were pretty much as smooth sailing as things could have gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the importance you put on training first, and we haven't even talked about this, but the importance that Britt put on her nutrition while she was pregnant too helped tremendously.
Definitely. Yeah. I could do better at that right now.
It is hard. That nutrition in pregnancy, that was, I had a sweet tooth, and that was my biggest, big downfall for me. I was like, I can't stop with like wanting, like, if there's a cookie, I'm like, I just need to eat it. Like, it's so
I know, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I've tried to
like normally when I'm not pregnant, like I still have a sweet tooth, but I can always say no.
You have some self-control, right? It's like when you're pregnant, this flip switches and you're like, oh my gosh, my inner fat kid is coming out.
Yeah.
And I can't.
Yeah. And then of course, Kyle blamed me for all of his weight gain during my pregnancy. Because
Daniel had the same problem.
I'm like, I'm sorry. You have self-control right now and you can work out full time. So
seriously. Yeah.
But yeah, the whole people shaming you thing, that was a big thing that I dealt with too. Like every time I go into work, people will be like, I can't believe you're still doing that stuff. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, it feels good. Like, it doesn't hurt. I'm like, I wouldn't do it if it hurt me, you know? Yeah. But, and even my
too, like, are you going to work up until the baby's due? Like, you should be resting before. I'm like,
yeah.
Like, I own my own business. Like, what do you mean resting before? Like, I don't. And if you eat, regardless of what you do, if you just like sit at home and let your mind wander, I mean, I don't think that's very healthy either.
Yeah. I worked up to the day I was due.
Me too.
Well, luckily I had like, the day I was having my contractions, I had a snow day for work. So that like kind of, yeah, I'm a teacher, so it worked out perfectly for me in that regard. Yeah. So, but yeah, like it is crazy, like the amount of like worry that other people put on pregnant women. Like, you know, we are still functioning humans. Like you said, we're not disabled. Like we still can do things.
I've told guys literally when Britt was pregnant, and it's like, you know, she's trying to carry in like a cake plate or something, like, oh, let me get that. I'm like, I've told other guys, I'm like, hey bud, just so you know, my wife is stronger than you. Like even now, she's stronger than you. Like she's stronger than the average grown man. So she's okay.
And she'll ask for help. Like if something was really awkward or heavy, I would say like, hey, can you help me? But if I don't ask you, like, please don't touch me and don't help me.
Yeah. Like in the gym, like I got to a point where like picking like 45-pound plates off the ground, that was like, I'm like, I'll let you guys just do this.
It's because your stomach though. It's not because you're weak. It's
exactly.
Like, your belly.
Oh yeah, I hear you.
But plyo boxes, those were
carrying my bench in. Yeah. Like stuff like that. Like that was just a pain in the ass to carry. Yeah. So, but yeah, that whole stereotype of like pregnant women not being able, and like, there are some women who are pregnant and like they have a horrible pregnancy. They are bedridden. Like I get it is out there, but, it's not everyone experiences that. And once again, it goes back to everyone's journey is way different. And so, I mean,
Lindsay Valenzuela, man.
Yeah.
One of the fittest women on the planet Earth, one of the biggest badasses you'll ever meet. And she just got dealt a bad hand. That I felt so bad for her.
For who?
Lindsay Valenzuela. Lindsay Valenzuela. Remember her pregnancy? How rough that got for her.
I didn't even know like her whole pregnancy story. It was bad.
Oh yeah, I don't know. We don't need to get into it, but she was really cool about how transparent she was to that whole process too. Like, this is not a walk in the park. This is not easy for me. You know, and that, yeah.
Still probably why she's one of your favorite girls.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I think too, like staying active throughout your whole pregnancy and even after, like I think that really helps with postpartum depression and just kind of like isolation, because when you have a baby, like you're pretty isolated afterwards. You're just right, you're like in it right now.
Yeah, literally. You know what Kyle said to me, he's like, do you need to like get out of the house and like go for a drive? And I'm like, I'm kind of almost too tired right now to even like think about that. But so he like forced me to go, like it was actually like 50 degrees and nice out the other day. And he's like, let's go for a walk. And it did, like, I felt so much better. I was like, thank you for making me do that. Because you just get wrapped up into like, especially with your first kid, you have no idea what you're doing. And you're just trying to figure out and like make sure this thing survives to the night every night. So yeah.
I'm still like, makes you feel better. And just like showering some days and washing your hair. Like you feel so gross in the beginning. You're like, oh my God, I've let myself go. But if you just like shower and maybe put mascara on and go for a walk, like I feel like a new woman.
Yep. Yeah.
That was like the thing with because when like I'm in no way mitigating at all what Britt went through, because I was there. She had it's not easy. But when I see like the multiple days in a row of like a lot of time on the couch, and I know she's very tired and I know she needs that time. But I also know my wife too. And I know that postpartum is a real serious thing that you keep an eye on. I just look at, I know that's not her. And I'm like, I know it'll make you feel so much better to just kind of be outside and move around a little bit or interact with people. And because if you guys feel comfortable about it, like because like postpartum is such a serious thing, if there's anything you can speak to on that, I think a lot of people would really appreciate hearing that.
Well, I mean, I'm not far enough into it really to have too much to say, but I did appreciate Kyle was very good and still is good about like asking me almost every day, like, are you okay? Like, how are you feeling? Like, do you need me to like watch Kellen so you can like go do something? Like, and I think that's been really helpful. And I honestly, like, I give props to mothers whose husbands have to go back to work right away and they're just by themselves, because I've had Kyle here with me through it so far. And I mean, it's been like a huge difference because like I said, I don't know how women do it by themselves, and I give them complete props for it, because it's been challenging with two of us here, let alone just doing it by yourself.
And it's lonely if you're by yourself.
Yeah.
I remember when Daniel had to go back to work and I was just with Vale. I was like, this kind of sucks. Like, of course it's super fun to take care of your baby, but when you're like in it, it's lonely. I will say what really helped me is I had like maybe like a handful of friends just across the United States. They weren't all in my area, and they recently had babies like within the past year or so. And they would just like text me and check in on me and say, you know, how are you feeling? And I would say like, my daughter's not latching on my breast, and you know, it's totally normal. Like go to see a lactation consultant or go to the doctor. And we had to do that. And that was really, really helpful. And then like, this is really gross. Sorry guys, but I totally ate my placenta. I put it into like capsule form.
And he wanted to do that.
I forgot to start like that whole process of getting it. I'm like, because our baby came a little early, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot to get this taken care of.
Do it next time.
Yeah, next time. There we go.
Yeah, and I didn't really tell many people about it because I'm like, they would think I was so gross, but whatever. But like if you put it in a capsule form, you can't really taste it. And I did it, and I like thankfully didn't have any postpartum depression symptoms. And I don't know if it worked or not, who knows, but it's supposed to help reduce those symptoms. And then like, so I did that. And then like just staying active and like trying to take showers and make yourself look somewhat presentable. I think that really helps.
Yeah.
And accepting visitors, like when you're ready for them and telling people no when you're not. I think that really helps. And then if you're like honestly sad or just need someone, just being open about it, like, hey, today's not a good day. Maybe I should go talk to someone, or maybe I just need to go hang out with my girlfriends. Like I would hang out with my girlfriend sometimes, and you feel guilty leaving your baby, kind of like what you said today, Brittany, but it's so good for your mental health.
When you're doing more harm than good if you're not taking care of yourself. Like it's the same thing with sleep. Like you're like, I just need sleep. Like, and you know, you feel bad, but at the same time, it's like, if I'm physically exhausted and mentally, like, how is that any better for my kid either? You know,
it's not.
But I'm glad you brought up too, like the friend thing. One of my best friends from when we were like 3 years old had a baby like 2 months before me, and she has been a godsend through this process, because she will literally reach out to me almost every day, and it's just like, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Like, and you know, and I had a colleague too who just had a baby. She's breastfeeding, so she's been really great with like talking to me about her process, because she had a really hard time with it too. And I'm going to see a lactation consultant actually tomorrow because I'm having a hard time with him latching too. So it's like,
they totally help, by the way.
Yeah, I had a Zoom meeting with her and he was doing okay. I was using a shield and then I started trying to wean off the shield and I don't think he was getting enough. He obviously wasn't getting enough milk because he didn't gain any weight and he was just on me for hours and I'd be up crying because it hurt and Kyle, like, I was like, I can't do anything because they couldn't feed. Like, it's a lot. And I also giving a lot of props to any woman who breastfeeds because that is a whole experience in itself through this journey. And it's a lot more demanding than I thought it was going to be for sure. So I'm interested to see how it goes tomorrow. What'd you say?
I promise it's easier. Like when we went to the doctor, I was in tears and the consultant was literally like, here, give me your baby. And just like positioned her and like put her on my boob. And she was like, here, try this position. She doesn't like this position. And that was like game changing. And then there's like a moment where it just flips and it's almost easy. I hate to say that because the beginning, it is so horrible. Right.
Yeah.
But there's like a moment that flips and then it's easy, which is nuts because it is a natural thing for some people. But I had some girlfriends that just their babies didn't latch or it just didn't work for them. It hurt for them. One of my girlfriends, her nipples bled. And I was like, why are you feeling guilty? Like if breastfeeding's not for you, like, don't feel bad about it. You know, your baby is going to get nutrients regardless, and you're going to love your baby. It doesn't make you a better mom just because you're breastfeeding or a worse mom because you're using formula. Like, I don't think that stuff matters. And so like the pressures of that, I wish that would totally go away. You know?
Yeah, that is something him and I experienced.
A lot of weird pressure they put on moms.
People are like, you're not breastfeeding. I'm like, well, maybe I can't.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason, or maybe it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's like one of those personal questions. Like, it's like, you know, for guys, like, you know, if somebody turns down a drink at a party, you're not like, oh, are you a recovering alcoholic? You're like, you know, it's like I would say, like, if they're not breastfeeding, just be like, oh, okay, none of my business. Just leave it at that.
Well, I mean, it's too like, I feel bad saying this, but so like this past week, we had an appointment last Monday and he wasn't gaining weight. So he was like, pretty much just pump and then supplement with formula if you're not pumping enough. So we've just been feeding him out of a bottle. And I said to Kyle, I'm like, this week I feel already so much better about like like my connection with my kid, because I was getting so frustrated. Like, and it's hard, it's sad to say because like they're not doing anything wrong and nor do they know what they're doing. But like at the same time, you're like, this hurts so bad. Like, why are you still on me? Yeah. Like, you know, and I so far this week, just like giving him like what I've been pumping and out of a bottle, like I feel like I'm able to like sit and relax with him so much more. Cause like,
awesome.
Like, cause he was feeding on me like almost every hour. And I'm like, I can't even like get up off the couch to do anything.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
Yeah. It's a lot. And like that alone was a huge mental test. So, yeah, you're right. Like fed is best. And if it's not for you, it's okay. Like you said, they're going to get their nutrients and their food regardless of the way it's done. So,
Melissa, I want to be respectful of your time. It seems like, I don't want to pull you away from your daughter for too long. So, first thing, kind of like last thing I want to talk about, and we kind of already touched on a lot of this. So let's just say if there's one piece of advice for both of you that you would give to an expectant mother, and let's say in the fitness space, let's kind of try to keep that in mind. So an expecting CrossFit mom, what would you tell them right now?
I would say go ahead.
You go. No, you go.
No, you go.
I would just say it's so cliche, but like once again, just do what you're comfortable with, like, you know, and it's so vague and hard to say, but if you feel okay, it's going to be okay. Like if it's not hurting, you're not going to hurt your baby. Like I truly do feel like that because like I said, I lifted pretty heavy until like probably halfway through, and then I cut back and I still moved with the barbell, and like I just did it to the point that I felt good, like, and I was getting out of my workout what I wanted to get out of it. Like,
and you had your days too, to be clear, like you had your days where you're like, oh, I pushed that too far. I need to back off a little bit next time. So it's like, if you have a setback, the world is not coming to an end. Your baby's okay.
Yeah. And you're figuring out your body, like your body's changing and you're going through the most miraculous thing that a woman's body can go through. And you're carrying a you know, a human, and just like understanding like it's trial and error. You're figuring out, it's just like motherhood. Like you figure it out as you go, and you listen to yourself, and you know, you have your intuition, and you know what is supposed to feel right and how things are supposed to feel. And if you've been working out prior to being pregnant and you're used to pushing yourself, like you'll be okay, and like you'll figure it out. And I do think it does help with labor as well, like being able to push yourself like that. So but yeah, just do what makes you feel comfortable, and don't listen to others as much. Like people are going to tell you that you can't do something, or something you shouldn't be doing something, and you're going to know what's best for you and your baby at that time. So
very concise.
She took my answer. I'm done.
It's hard to direct it, like, because like we've been saying, like every pregnancy is different.
I know. I don't
want to tell people like, yeah, you can do everything, you're fine. Like,
drop some knowledge bombs on us, Melissa. This is your last chance.
Well, your last chance. I don't know about you, Brittany, but did you have ligament pain when you were pregnant? Like from growing ligaments and stuff? No?
Not really. No.
Like in the joints, you mean?
No, like in your uterus, I forget I think it's just called like round ligament pain, but like you can feel your uterus. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I have a ton of like ligament pain, like right where my hip catches my stomach.
Oh, no, I didn't have that.
No, I don't know. So for me, like every time I have that, I swear the next day my belly looks bigger. And it's called round ligament pain. And in the beginning, when I would work out, I didn't know what that was. It would really freak me out because, like, say you're doing a heavy squat and you feel that, you're like, oh my God. And then I would ask my doctor, and they're like, it's just round ligament pain. It has nothing to do with what you're doing in the moment. So like, try to calm down. But kind of what you said, just basing it on how you feel. And if you've been doing something for months or for years and your body knows what you're doing, you're going to be totally fine. Calm down a little bit, like lower the intensity, make sure you can say your ABCs when you're working out. You don't have to stop running until it feels uncomfortable. You don't have to stop lifting until you feel like you're straining too much. And then also make sure that you have a doctor or a midwife or whomever that you work with that understands you and understands your goals, whether that be, you know, you want to stay active the whole time, you want to have a C-section, you want to have an epidural, you want to have a natural birth, like whatever you want to have, a home birth, just having an OBGYN or a midwife that understands your goals and really someone that you can speak to. Because mine, especially this time, they have been like so cool. I'll say, they don't even care. They're like, are you staying active? And I'm like, yeah. Are you mentally happy? Yes. And they're like, keep doing what you're doing. You know, it's, I think that's really important. Just having someone aligning with your goals. And then also knowing that when you have the baby, you will get back to where you were before. It might just take some time and patience, but it didn't take a month for your body to go from 0 to 40 weeks pregnant, right? So just having a little bit of patience in that too, and knowing you will go back to normal, your life will go back to a new normal, and it'll be even better than it was before. So that would be my advice.
Boom. Perfect words.
Was that better than mine?
Boom.
They were both great. Anyway, so like I said, I want to make sure we're respectful of your time, Melissa. So before we say our goodbyes, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, how can people reach you? Is there anything you want to plug? Put your Instagram handle out there. Make sure more people can.
Let me see what my Instagram handle is. Hold on. That's pretty bad. Brittany, you go first.
I'm pulling mine up too. I don't remember. But yeah, you can. Yeah. Hold on. Sorry.
All right. This is great podcasting, everybody. It'd be a great time for an ad.
Yeah, right. No, mine is BBBB Marie. So 4 B's Marie, and that's my Instagram handle. So yeah, you can message me on there. I do have a blog that you can contact me on. I haven't updated it in forever, especially with being pregnant and going through all that stuff. But that's also posted on my Instagram. I have Facebook you can message me on at B-Rit Hamlett. And I mean, anything you need, I'm growing and learning through this process, but I can give you any insight or information that I've experienced, and hopefully it can help you along the way. So yeah, you can reach out to me in any of those platforms, and I'll be happy to help you out.
Melissa?
So I have Facebook too. I'm not as active on Facebook as I should be. But my name on Facebook is obviously Melissa Doss. And then I have like a regular Facebook, and then I have an athlete. So I did that because back in the day, I would have like the most random people friend me. And they would be like people who met me through CrossFit and stuff. And I try to just accept people on Facebook who I've kind of somewhat met at some point in life. So a lot of people follow like athlete, and I don't update that as much as I used to, but I'm pretty active on Instagram. It's Meldos, MELDOSS 00. And I do get quite a few inbox questions. Give me like a couple weeks to respond sometimes, but yeah, that's probably the best way to reach me. And I'll try to track more of my pregnancy journey. Brittany.
Meldos00 on Instagram.
You got it.
Okay. Well, so before we go, I just want to make sure we also say how much we appreciate your candor. Really appreciate you guys being so open and being so willing to share so much about your experiences. I know it's probably not super easy sort of opening up like that publicly, and especially to people you don't know super well. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you so much for being so honest and open for everything. I know a lot of people will really appreciate it.
No problem. I appreciated it.
I'm so glad you were here, Brittany. I thought I was just gonna have to sit here and talk the whole time.
It was nice, like bouncing. I think it's great, like you know, sharing each other's pregnancy stories and just kind of seeing how things were the same and how they were different for everyone. And I think it'll help a lot more people out hearing different perspectives than just one. So yeah, I
agree.
Glad you're here too.
So all right, everybody, thank you for listening to us today. Give us a follow on Instagram at Pardon My Jerk. Give us a follow on Facebook at Pardon My Jerk. Leave us a review on iTunes and make sure you hashtag this week's jerk work. All right. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody, and goodbye.